The evening-crowded Millstone diner was unusually loud, but Emily kept her soft smile as she moved between tables carrying plates of steaming food. At only 21, she had a calm strength about her, the kind that came from surviving too many hard days and refusing to let the world see her break. She was wiping down a table near the window when the bell above the door jingled and the energy in the diner instantly changed. 3 local troublemakers walked in, the type who had small minds and big egos. They swaggered toward her with mocking grins, already looking for a target. Emily tried to take their order politely, hoping they'd eat quickly and leave, but bullies smell vulnerability like wolves smell blood. One of them leaned back and pulled at her apron strings, taunting her for ignoring their compliments. Emily stepped back, mortified, but before she could react, the biggest one yanked hard, ripping her apron clean off. The laughter that followed stabbed deeper than the humiliation. The entire diner went silent. Emily stood frozen, fighting tears, clutching her uniform. The bullies sneered proudly, throwing the torn apron onto the floor like trash. But then something happened that none of them expected. The laughter died. The bullies' smirks faded. A low, heavy engine grumbled outside. Then another. 2 matte black SUVs pulled up at the front door with the kind of quiet menace that made even grown men swallow hard. The headlights stayed on, but the engines went still, like predators watching before they strike. Emily didn't recognize the vehicles, but someone else in the diner did. And his face went pale. The doors of both SUVs opened at the exact same time, almost synchronized, like a military formation. 4 men stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, expressionless, all dressed in black coats. They didn't rush, didn't look around, didn't show emotion. They just walked. Slow. Unbothered. Purposeful. As though they already knew everything that had just happened inside. The bullies watched them enter, pretending not to be intimidated, but their bravado cracked like thin ice. Everyone in the diner felt the shift. It wasn't the kind of fear bullies inspired, loud, chaotic, unpredictable. This was the kind of fear that came from controlled power. Emily shrank back, confused and shaken. She didn't know these men. But they clearly knew someone. The leader, a tall man with a scar running across his eyebrow, scanned the room, his eyes landing on the torn apron on the floor. Then, slowly, he lifted his gaze to Emily's trembling hands. To the bullies. To the customers who looked away to avoid attention. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. He turned to Emily gently. Who did this? He asked, his voice low but commanding. Emily opened her mouth, trying to say don't worry about it, but the biggest bully quickly pointed at her. We didn't touch her. It was her fault. The scarred man raised one eyebrow. The bully's voice died in his throat. Without breaking eye contact, the man snapped his fingers. The other 3 men moved, swift as shadows, blocking every exit. Now there was no pretending. No laughing. No escape. The bully who tore the apron stepped back, stuttering. We were just messing around. The leader stepped closer, each step heavy enough to silence the room further. When you mess with someone, he said quietly, you should first ask yourself, is someone watching? The bully felt his knees weaken. Because someone had been watching. And they weren't amused. The diner was so quiet that even the hum of the neon sign outside felt loud. Emily pressed herself against the counter, unsure whether to intervene or stay silent. She didn't want violence, she had experienced enough of that growing up, but she also couldn't deny the flicker of justice warming inside her chest. The leader of the group finally looked away from the bullies and turned to Emily. His expression softened instantly. Emily Carter, he asked. She froze. How did he know her name? She nodded slowly. The man took a quiet breath. Your brother sent us. Her eyes widened. Liam. Her older brother. The only person who ever protected her when they were kids. The one who had enlisted young, disappeared into elite training, and rarely came home. She hadn't seen him in nearly 2 years. He heard you were working nights alone, the leader continued. He asked us to keep an eye on you while he's overseas. Emily felt her throat close. Liam always worried, always tried to shield her even from far away. And now she understood, these weren't random men. They were his team. Or something close to it. Meanwhile, the bullies exchanged terrified glances. The scarred man stepped aside so Emily had a clear view of them. We saw everything, he said. But it's your call. Emily's eyes widened. My call? Yes, he replied. What happens next is entirely up to you. Emily looked at the bullies, cowards without their pack, shaking, hiding behind excuses. For the first time that night, she wasn't scared. She was standing. In control. Strong. The leader waited patiently, respecting that it was her decision. Emily inhaled, her voice finally steady. I don't want anyone hurt, she said. Just, make sure they never do this to anyone again. The leader gave a single nod. Done. The black-clad men didn't raise fists. They didn't shout. They didn't threaten. They did something far worse. They escorted the bullies outside, lined them up in front of the diner windows where everyone could see, and delivered a lesson they would never forget. Their method was simple: intimidation paired with truth. One man spoke calmly about respect. Another explained consequences. Another forced them to pick up trash, wipe graffiti off the sidewalk, and apologize to every customer who witnessed their behavior. It wasn't punishment by violence, it was punishment by humility. The people in the diner watched in disbelief as the arrogant bullies, red-faced and shaking, cleaned the parking lot like scared schoolchildren. Emily stepped outside slowly, watching as the leader directed the process quietly, professionally. When the bullies finally stood before her, sweaty and out of breath, their voices cracked as they muttered apologies, real ones this time. Emily didn't gloat. The morning sun spilled gently across Millstone as Emily walked toward the diner, humming softly, something she hadn't done in years. The world felt safer now, lighter somehow, as if the weight she had carried her whole life had finally loosened its grip. But just as she reached the corner, she sensed something was off. Not wrong, exactly. Just different. The kind of tension that sits in the air before a storm breaks, silent but undeniable. She stepped inside the diner, expecting the usual warmth, but instead found everyone unusually quiet. Two regulars whispered in a corner. Mrs. Hutchins, who normally talked more than she ate, stared nervously out the window. Emily frowned. What happened? She asked calmly. Her manager swallowed hard. There's a visitor. He's in booth 7. Emily's breath caught. Booth 7 was in the far back, a place people only sat when they didn't want to be seen. She walked slowly, her pulse quickening with each step, until she saw him, a man dressed in a dark green military jacket, his posture rigid but exhausted, as if he had traveled 1,000 miles without stopping. His head was bowed, hands clasped together on the table. Emily froze. She knew those shoulders. That quiet strength. That familiar heaviness. Liam, she whispered. Her brother looked up. His eyes, once fiery and confident, were tired, carrying stories he wasn't ready to tell. But when he saw her, they softened. Hey, little sister. Emily rushed into his arms, the world fading as she hugged him tightly. He held her just as firmly, as though anchoring himself. When they finally pulled apart, she noticed a scar along his neck, fresh and angry. Her heart clenched. You didn't tell me you were coming home, she said. Liam managed a weary smile. Wasn't planned. His voice was lower, heavier, edged with something she couldn't read. Something unsettling. Emily, he whispered, glancing around the diner before lowering his tone. I need to talk to you about something important. The air shifted again. Whatever storm she sensed earlier, it was sitting right in front of her. The diner seemed to shrink around them as Liam leaned forward, his jaw tight, eyes scanning every corner as if danger might rise from the salt shakers or spill out from the kitchen doors. Emily had never seen him like this, alert, guarded, almost hunted. She slid into the booth across from him, her hands trembling slightly. Liam, she whispered, what's wrong? He exhaled, rubbing a hand across his face, and for a moment he looked older than his years. I didn't want to bring this home, he began. I tried to keep everything far away from you. That's why I sent my team. Emily's heart raced. The men in the black SUVs? He nodded. Yeah. They're good men. Loyal. They were supposed to watch from a distance. But that night, things changed. Emily frowned. Because of the bullies? Liam shook his head slowly. No. Because someone else was watching too. The words struck her like cold water. The room seemed to tilt. Someone else? Liam leaned closer, his voice nearly a whisper. Emily, the scarred guy who leads my team, Marcus, called me the moment they stepped in to help you. He wasn't worried about the bullies. He was worried about a man he spotted across the street. Someone he'd seen before. Someone who shouldn't be anywhere near this town. Emily swallowed hard. Who was he? Liam hesitated, choosing his words carefully. His name is Viktor Hale. Ex Special Forces. Discharged for things the military doesn't talk about publicly. Dangerous things. A chill crept up her spine. Why would he be watching me? Not you, Liam corrected. Me. That only made it worse. Liam, what did you get involved in? He closed his eyes for a moment, like he was replaying memories he wished he could erase. On my last mission, he said quietly, we intercepted intel about a private group Viktor was working with. They're not soldiers. They're not criminals. There's something in between. And they don't forgive easily. He looked at her, pain flickering behind his eyes. I stopped something they were planning. Something big. And now, they want leverage. Emily felt her breath hitch. Liam, are you saying yes, he said. They'll try to use you to get to me. Viktor was proof of that. Fear clawed at her chest, but Liam reached across the table and took her hands in his. His grip was steady, grounding. But I'm here now, he said. And I'm not leaving you alone. Not for a second. Emily blinked back tears. What do we do? Liam's eyes hardened with resolve. First, we get you somewhere safe, he said. Then we wait for Marcus and the others. They're already on their way. Emily's heartbeat pounded in her ears. The calm life she fought so hard to build was cracking apart at the edges, replaced by a threat she didn't understand. But one thing was painfully clear: the night the bullies tore her apron wasn't the beginning of her danger. It was the warning. And whatever was coming, whatever shadows Liam brought back with him, were already closing in on Millstone.